King Jehoshaphat of Judah and King Ahab of Israel were two of the most powerful rulers of their time. Jehoshaphat ruled Judah, the southern kingdom, from 873 to 848 BC. He is remembered as a good king, a man who walked in the ways of his father David. He sought to honor God and lead his people in righteousness. Ahab, on the other hand, ruled the northern kingdom of Israel from 874 to 853 BC. He was a wicked king, influenced by his pagan wife Jezebel. Ahab embraced idolatry and led Israel astray from the one true God. The Bible tells us that Ahab did more evil in the eyes of the Lord than any of those before him. He built altars to Baal and even sacrificed his own children to this false god. He persecuted the prophets of the Lord and plunged Israel into spiritual darkness. These two kings, Jehoshaphat and Ahab, stood in stark contrast. One sought to follow God's ways, the other openly defied them. Yet, despite their differences, an unlikely alliance was formed between them. The alliance between Jehoshaphat and Ahab was cemented by the marriage of their children. Ahab and Jezebel's daughter, Athaliah, married Jehoshaphat's son, Jehoram. This political maneuver was common in the ancient Near East. It served to secure peace and foster cooperation between neighboring kingdoms. For Jehoshaphat, the alliance offered several advantages. It brought temporary peace with Israel, a powerful neighbor that had often been hostile to Judah. This peace brought economic benefits as well. It facilitated trade and allowed Judah to expand its influence. The alliance also presented a united front against common enemies, such as the Arameans to the north. However, this alliance came at a steep spiritual price for Jehoshaphat and Judah. By aligning himself with Ahab, Jehoshaphat exposed himself and his kingdom to the corrupting influence of Baal worship and idolatry. This decision, though politically expedient, would have dire consequences. It marked a turning point in Jehoshaphat's reign and cast a long shadow over his legacy. The alliance between Judah and Israel was soon put to the test. Ramoth Gilead, a strategically important city east of the Jordan River, had fallen under the control of the Arameans. Retaking this city was crucial for both kingdoms. It represented a strategic stronghold and a matter of pride. Ahab saw an opportunity to reclaim this lost territory and called upon Jehoshaphat to join him in battle. Jehoshaphat, perhaps blinded by the perceived benefits of the alliance, agreed to join Ahab in this military campaign. He mobilized his troops and marched alongside the Israelite army towards Ramoth Gilead. This decision proved to be a grave error in judgment. It placed him in league with a wicked king and on the brink of a battle that God had not ordained. It was a decision that would have far-reaching consequences, not just for Jehoshaphat, but for his entire kingdom. Before marching into battle, Ahab gathered his prophets, over 400 of them. These prophets, eager to please the king, unanimously predicted a swift and decisive victory for Israel and Judah. However, Jehoshaphat, sensing something amiss, asked Ahab, "Is there not here a prophet of the Lord besides?" Ahab reluctantly summoned Micaiah, a prophet of the Lord known for his truthful, though often unwelcome, pronouncements. Micaiah, in stark contrast to the other prophets, prophesied disaster for Ahab. He saw a vision of the Israelite army scattered and defeated, and Ahab himself struck down in battle. Ahab, enraged by this prophecy, dismissed Micaiah and threw him in prison. Despite this clear warning from God, Ahab, driven by pride and ambition, refused to listen. He went into battle, disguised as a common soldier, hoping to avoid the fate Micaiah had foretold. Jehoshaphat, though initially hesitant, joined him on the battlefield. This decision placed him directly in harm's way, a consequence of his ill-conceived alliance. Section 5. The Prophet's Rebuke. Should you help the wicked? After the battle, the prophet Jehu confronted Jehoshaphat. He said to the king, "Should you help the wicked and love those who hate the Lord? Because of this, the wrath of the Lord is on you." 2 Chronicles 19, verse 2. The prophet's words were a sharp rebuke. Jehoshaphat, despite his good intentions and desire to follow God, had allowed himself to be led astray by a wicked king. He had compromised his faith for the sake of political expediency and military advantage. The alliance with Ahab, though seemingly beneficial on the surface, had brought God's disfavor upon Jehoshaphat and Judah. It had exposed them to the corrupting influences of idolatry and led them into a battle that God had not sanctioned. The near-fatal experience on the battlefield was a stark reminder of the dangers of compromising with wickedness. It was a lesson that Jehoshaphat would carry with him for the rest of his days. The consequences of Jehoshaphat's alliance with Ahab were not limited to the battlefield. God's displeasure manifested in other areas as well. When Jehoshaphat entered into a shipbuilding partnership with Ahaziah, Ahab's successor, the venture ended in disaster. The ships were wrecked at Ezion-Geber, thwarting their plans for trade and expansion. This failure served as a further reminder of God's disapproval. It highlighted the principle that disobedience, even in seemingly secular matters, carries spiritual consequences. Furthermore, during Jehoshaphat's reign, Judah faced increased threats from neighboring nations. The Moabites, Ammonites, and Meunites, sensing weakness in Judah, launched attacks on its southern borders. These attacks, though ultimately repelled, were a sign of Judah's vulnerability. They demonstrated that the alliance with Israel had not brought lasting peace or security. It had in fact weakened Judah's standing and invited aggression from its enemies. The consequences of Jehoshaphat's alliance extended to his own family. His son, Jehoram, married Athaliah, the daughter of Ahab and Jezebel. Athaliah, a woman of ruthless ambition and unwavering loyalty to her mother's pagan gods, exerted a corrupting influence over Jehoram. When Jehoram became king, he followed in the footsteps of his father-in-law Ahab rather than his own father, Jehoshaphat. He embraced idolatry, persecuted the faithful, and led Judah further down the path of spiritual decline. The bloodshed and chaos that marked Jehoram's reign were a direct consequence of his parents' ill-advised alliance. Athaliah's influence, rooted in the unholy union between the royal houses of Judah and Israel, cast a long shadow over Judah. It demonstrated the far-reaching and enduring impact of decisions made in the pursuit of political expediency. The story of Jehoshaphat and Ahab serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of compromise. It highlights the importance of seeking God's will in all things, especially in matters of alliance and leadership. Jehoshaphat's desire for peace and prosperity was not inherently wrong. However, his pursuit of these goals led him to make choices that compromised his faith and jeopardized his kingdom. The Bible reminds us that bad company corrupts good character, 1 Corinthians 15:33. When we align ourselves with those who do not share our values, we risk being influenced by their beliefs and behaviors. This is especially true for leaders whose decisions have a profound impact on those they lead. The story of Jehoshaphat encourages us to choose our allies wisely, to prioritize spiritual integrity over political expediency, and to seek God's guidance in all that we do. The alliance between Jehoshaphat and Ahab stands as a stark reminder of the spiritual dangers that await when God's people prioritize worldly alliances over faithfulness to God. Though Jehoshaphat is remembered for his efforts to restore worship of the true God in Judah, his alliance with Ahab serves as a cautionary tale of the far-reaching consequences of compromise. It underscores the importance of seeking God's wisdom in all our relationships and endeavors, recognizing that even well-intentioned alliances can lead to spiritual downfall. The story challenges us to examine our own lives, to identify those relationships and pursuits that might be leading us away from God, and to make the necessary changes to realign ourselves with His will. By learning from Jehoshaphat's mistakes, we can avoid repeating them in our own lives. We can strive to be people of integrity, who prioritize our relationship with God above all else, and who lead others by example, guiding them towards righteousness and faithfulness.